Who's leading your life? Is it you? Or are decisions being made by other people's expectations, immediate pressures, and circumstances you believe you cannot change? You may not be in control of everything that happens to you, but you can influence more of your life than you realize. The moment you take responsibility for what you can influence, you begin to claim your power back. That is self leadership. And without it, you cannot fully have the courage to be yourself. Hello and welcome to season 26 of Unbox the Podcast. I'm your host, Sahar Huneidi Palmer, and over the past 2 months, the podcast has reached more than 80,000 people. So I want to say welcome to our new listeners. I thought this would be the right time to share why I began this podcast more than 20 years ago and how my work has developed and why self-leadership has always been at the heart of it. The theme of this season is the courage to be you. But courage to be yourself doesn't suddenly appear out of nowhere because you tell yourself you need to be courageous, you need to be brave. It actually grows through self-awareness. It becomes stronger when you understand your body, yourself, when you understand how to trust your judgment, how to become more aligned, and how to hold yourself accountable for what you're going to do next. This belief did not begin as a theory. I grew from a time in my life when I felt completely lost. I was in my late 20s when the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait took place and turned my life around. I knew upside down the future I had imagined was suddenly no longer available. I didn't know what would happen if, or even what I was supposed to do next. People offered me advice. They meant well, but none of it actually helped. They could tell me what appeared sensible from their perspective, but it wasn't right for me. I wasn't simply trying to make a decision. I was trying to understand who I was within these circumstances I had never expected to face. That became a turning point in my life. We often imagine a turning point to happen at a moment of certainty. In my experience, it usually begins when the old answers no longer work. When you kind of struggle to shift gears, that's when you know you go through a transformation. And you don't know yet what to replace them with. That experience taught me something I have carried with me in my work ever since. Guidance can help you, but it cannot lead your life for you. And I also believe that we each have a specific and unique life journey. There cannot be a cookie cutter solutions that apply to everyone in that kind of situation. At some point, you have to understand yourself well enough to make your own decisions. You have to lead yourself. Nothing is predetermined. I didn't plan to become a professional intuitive either. I was deeply in marketing, advertising, and brand management. My work as a mentor, intuitive mentor, and a holistic therapist developed gradually after the Iraqi invasion, through my own experiences, through the people that I came in contact with, through the clients who came to see me. Whenever I began a life reading at the time, I told my clients that nothing was predetermined, which is what I've learned from my mentor. I didn't want anyone to believe that their future had already been decided. I mean, wouldn't you give up? A reading could reveal patterns, possibilities, and where their current choices were taking them or might be leading them, but they were still an active part of what's going to happen next. My clients began coming back with one very important question. How do I make things happen? That question changed my work. They didn't simply want to know what might happen. They wanted to understand how they could influence their lives. They wanted to make better decisions. They wanted to change those repeating patterns and create new opportunities instead. They were asking me how to move from possibility to action. As we explored these questions, the work became much more than reading a situation. We looked at how they thought, how they believed, and how they felt towards what they were doing. Any friction will show up when you ask these questions. They wanted guidance on how to become more empowered. 35 years later, those questions have made an intuitive life mentor out of me. My role was to help them understand what was happening beneath the surface, to recognize the little tether that was holding them back, so that they can reach clarity, which then they can lead themselves. That is also why I began Unbox the podcast more than 20 years ago. I wanted this kind of guidance that was specific to each one to be available for everyone. Not only the people who could work with me privately, but to give them a platform that they can access this information whenever they're ready. I am especially passionate about reaching the younger generation because I remember how I felt completely lost, not knowing which way to turn when it happened to me, particularly at that young age when you're really vulnerable and you lack wisdom, perhaps. There is more information available today than there was then, but having more information doesn't necessarily give you greater awareness or greater clarity. Clarity comes from knowing how to recognize what is relevant to you. That is alignment. What's good for you may not be good for me, but what is applicable to me is different from what is applicable to you. And that is why I believe you can begin to guide yourself once you understand this dynamic. I wrote a book about this, which became a bestseller. It was Tarot for Self Transformation. I had a lot of creative clients, people with creative minds, and I wanted to show how the pictures in the tarot were actually telling the story of self development and transformation. Tarot imagery can help you recognize emotions, cycles, timing, patterns that may not be so visibly and tangible to you. And maybe you're not even able to put them into words. It can bring the unconscious to the conscious. So for me, it was really a bridge between the unconscious and the conscious, between the logical and the intuitive side. The images of the tarot do not make your decision. You decide what inside is relevant to you and what you will do about it. That is the difference between guidance that empowers and guidance that make you more dependent on it. Useful guidance should return you to yourself with more awareness, more wisdom, more understanding, and not take your authority away. That is self leadership. Self leadership doesn't mean controlling everything that happens. You cannot control people. You cannot control sudden events, or every outcome. I certainly couldn't control the invasion that changed my life. But even when difficult circumstances exist, there comes a point where you really need to ask yourself, what can I influence? What choices are still available under the same circumstances? What happens next is that awareness translates into action. Accountability can sound severe, which is one of the four dimensions. It doesn't mean blaming yourself. This is not what I mean. You may not be responsible for what has happened to you, but you are responsible for how you respond to what you chose to do next. So you're responsible for your response. And that I find is empowering because it moves your attention from what you cannot do to what you can do. And in that process, you restore a part of yourself and you affirm to yourself that you still have influence. Sometimes that influence is very limited. You may not be able to leave a job immediately. or you cannot change another person's behavior, or you cannot change a decision that you made many moons ago. But you may still be able to set a boundary, prepare for a new role, acquire a new skill, ask a different question, or stop repeating the choices that no longer serve you. I often tell my clients to drive into the space, which is what my driving instructor used to see. He used to say, look at taxis, they drive into the space. I applied this to my life and still do. In spite of any limiting circumstances that I might be going through, I always ask myself, what is possible now? And self leadership begins there. It is not always a dramatic act. Very often, it's a small but honest act, a decision that can change the direction that you're going into. Finally, you may ask, why does alignment matter? You'll hear me talking a lot about alignment this year. You can know exactly what you should do and still find yourself unable to do it. That usually means there is more happening within you than what the problem seems to be. One part of you wants to move forward, while the other part is trying to keep you stuck to the familiar, basically. Your mind may believe that a decision is logical, but your emotions resist it. You may say that something matters to you, but your actions that you repeatedly take tells you that you're going in a different direction. When different parts of you are pulling in opposite directions, you lose energy and you lose confidence. You hesitate, you overthink, and you question your own judgment. This is why my work centers on alignment. Over many years of working with clients, I've developed a BEMA methodology. It's based on the 4 dimensions of change that make up our human being: the body, emotions, mind and belief system, and accountability to actions. These 4 dimensions help us understand where an obstacle might be rooted. Look out for my new book, Find Your Joy. I think it's due in October of this year. Your body may be reacting to pressure that your mind has normalized. Your emotions may be responding to a belief that you have never questioned. You may understand a situation perfectly well, but remain stuck because your actions do not reflect what you know within you. Lasting transformation requires more than insight. The different parts need to work together. The problem may be somewhere else rather than where you think it is. I'm currently working with a client from Canada who frequently has migraine experiences. He had already sought appropriate medical advice, but through mentoring work, we recognized that there was another dimension requiring attention: his mindset towards his current job. The job hasn't changed. What has changed is the way he relates to it and the amount of internal pressure he created around it. He's making very encouraging progress. His changed attitude helped him manage his present differently while preparing for the next platform. This physical symptom of migraines has brought his attention to the problem. It was about exploring what else was happening in his life and identifying the part that was influencing him. This is an important distinction. The place where a problem appears is not always where the obstacle began. You may think you have a motivation problem, but the real problem is that you no longer want that goal, for example. You may think you need more confidence when an old belief is telling you that you must seek everyone's approval. You might think you need to make an immediate decision when you actually need more information. This is why generic advice often fails. 2 people can face the same situation and need completely different guidance. One person needs to take action. Another may need to stop and understand why they're pushing themselves towards something that they genuinely don't want. My intuition helps me recognize which dimension may be holding the obstacle and why. My experience helps me ask the right questions and to listen to the answers and the words that clients use to describe themselves and their situation. Self-leadership begins with that kind of awareness, deep awareness. It doesn't always mean knowing the answer. It is about understanding what's happening within you, underneath those layers, recognizing what you can influence and taking responsibility for what you can do next. So, to return to the question I asked at the beginning of this episode, who is leading your life? And if the answer is not entirely you, you need to ask yourself, what can I influence in my life right now? What is the space that I can drive into? You may not be able to change the whole situation, but one honest decision, one purposeful action can take you in the direction that you need to move into. If you would like more support in that process, please explore my online courses, particularly Unbox A Brighter Future. It will help you examine where you are now, understand what we've been talking about, and begin to create the future that you desire. Your next platform or the direction that you want to go into or the career that you want to seek next. Next week, we will continue this conversation and explore how can we begin to recognize where an obstacle is actually rooted and what you can do to identify it. For now, here's a quick exercise. Are you leading yourself? Think about one area that you feel stuck in your life right now. Don't try and examine every situation, but ask yourself, if I was leading myself in this situation, what would I do next? If you were your best friend, what would you advise them? The action may be a conversation, a decision, a boundary, a change of thought. It may be acknowledging that you need to explore this situation more deeply before you act. Self-leadership doesn't mean leaping into action. It means taking responsibility to gain the clarity before you act. If you are ready to look more carefully at where you are now and what you can create next, Unbox the Brighter Future course can support you. It will help you examine what needs to change and begin shaping your next platform with greater awareness, clarity, and here it goes, alignment. You will find a direct link in the episode description. The courage to lead your life, the courage to be yourself, begins with knowing yourself. It grows when you trust your inner guidance alongside logic and remain accountable for the choices that you make. You may not be always able to control everything in your life or what happens, but you're not powerless within your own life. You can prepare for a different future. When your 4 dimensions are aligned, confidence grows naturally. You understand what you're doing and why it matters to you. That makes confidence grows, and the courage to act happens naturally. Self-leadership is how you stop waiting for someone else to take responsibility and act on your behalf, and you begin to take responsibility and act with clarity. Thank you for listening to Season 26, Episode 31 of Unbox the Podcast. If this episode helped you or helped inspire you, please subscribe now. I know many of you follow, but very few actually subscribe. It would really help more people to discover this podcast. And it will also ensure that you don't miss our next conversation. See you next Tuesday.